This is John Paul Ryan. I'm coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. This here is a tweet I clipped out from Bounding Into Comics by Rian Johnson, who of course has to shit on the Lucas Star Wars films. I'm here to defend them like usual. So let's put this whole thing into context before I get into Rian Johnson's silly little tweet. Star Wars The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson recently described George Lucas's Star Wars prequel trilogy as children's movie about fascists. Johnson responded to a tweet from Scott Malthouse, who stated, "Say a genuinely nice thing about the Star Wars prequels." And of course, Rian Johnson says, Lucas made a gorgeous 7-hour-long movie for children about how entitlement and fear of loss turns good people into fascists, and did it while spearheading nearly every technical sea change in modern filmmaking of the past 30 years. So, I don't really understand why somebody who's making Star Wars movies has to shit on original Star Wars movies by the creator, unless, of course, you didn't like them. If you didn't like them, then what are you doing in the franchise, promoting it, making your own movies? You should, at the very least, be professional. If you didn't like them, if you've got some hang-ups about them, at least be neutral. Point out pros and cons. Don't just say they were turning good people into fascists. I mean, after all, they were released after we had seen that, I guess he's talking about Anakin, who becomes the bad person, turned to the light. It was a fill-in part on how he became bad, but he ultimately turned back to the good side. Entitlement, I guess, look, nothing comes to mind like right away about entitlement, but there were different characters in the sequels. They all had pretty different motives, so you can't really say the whole thing was about entitlement. I don't think the Jedi were too entitled. I mean, they actually disbanded and they ended up running. Again, maybe he's talking about Anakin. Not quite sure. And I will agree that they seem to be made for children much more so than the first 3 movies or the original trilogy. But there's still plenty of like people getting cut in half, decapitation, things like that. I always say Star Wars was the perfect mix for adults and children. A lot of people argue it was like for one or the other. It wasn't. It was the perfect mix for both adults and children. That's your answer. If someone asks you, is Star Wars made for children? You say yes, but it's also made for adults and it's got the perfect balance. Then they get into Iger and what he said, and they try to explain that Lucas never liked the Disney trilogy or The Last Jedi specifically, but I think he didn't like any of them. Iger explained just prior to the global release, Kathy screened The Force Awakens for George. She didn't hide his disappointment. There's nothing new, he said. In each of the films in the original trilogy, it was important to him to present new worlds, new stories, new characters, and new technologies. In this one, he said, there weren't enough visuals or technical leaps forward. He wasn't wrong, but he also wasn't appreciating the pressure we were under to give ardent fans a film that felt quintessentially Star Wars, Iger added. Well, the problem is this. It was way too close to A New Hope. And, honestly, what pressure? We just wanted a good Star Wars movie with a good story. I think we wanted always to capture the tone of the OT in that sense, but nobody wanted to see a similar plot line with similar scenery. We just wanted it to stay great. Anyway, you guys let me know what you think down below. I'm doing Star Wars once in a while. If you guys have been here for a long time, you know I'm doing Johnny Depp vs. Amber Heard. I'm doing some entertainment, celebrity news, things like that. But once in a while, you will see a Star Wars video, because that's how I started, and I will never, ever stop voicing my opinion on how bad I personally think the Disney Star Wars is. If you are following me for my Johnny videos, you happen to be passing by, trust me, there's a lot about the Disney Star Wars, Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy, that is very off-putting. So check out some videos, give it a like, give it a share, help us out. We've been fighting these people for like 2 years. They wronged the fans. And there are similarities between what's going on with Amber Heard and what went on with the fandom. Two completely different things, but there are some underlining similarities. One is Kathleen Kennedy can't be touched because she's a woman most likely, and we have a similar thing with Amber Heard where, as you guys know, she'll probably be given some kind of lenient punishment and she's not being attacked by the mass media. Alright, if you're new here, consider subscribing, especially if you're watching up to this point. If you subscribe, I'll be pretty happy. If you don't, I'll be sad, but I'll get over it. See you next time.
Central Parkway in